I have been hauling a refrigerated trailer long enough to trust routine more than luck. Lock the doors, scan the mirrors, park where there are lights and other trucks. If a place feels wrong, keep moving. I follow that rule because I have seen what happens when people get casual at night. The rain was heavy and constant, loud enough to flatten the world into one gray sound. I had a morning delivery window and a reefer unit humming steady behind me. I told myself I was fine until my eyes did the thing I fear most. A blink that lasted too long. My head dipped, the lane line slid under my tire, and I snapped awake with my heart climbing my throat. I checked the clock. 3 a.m. I could keep going and pretend it was nothing, or I could pull over before fatigue decided for me. The next proper rest area was too far, so I took a small truck parking pull-off that I already disliked. Trees packed tight on both sides, one dim street lamp flickering over wet pavement and muddy edges. I eased the truck into the thin light, parked, and kept the engine running for a moment just to feel less alone. Then I shut it down. Rain on the roof, reefer hum, nothing else. I did my checklist anyway. Doors locked, windows up, quick scan of mirrors, nothing moving that I could see. I pulled the curtains closed because I wanted sleep more than I wanted to think. I told myself it would be 10 minutes, just enough to reset. I was drifting when a sound cut through the rain, a soft step in mud, close, then another, then a light tap on metal. At first I tried to fold it into the storm. Water hits everything. Wind moves loose parts. Mud shifts under tires. I waited for it to fade into randomness. It did not. The tapping came back with shape and timing. Tap, tap, pause, tap. The footsteps moved along the trailer, slow, stopping to tap, then moving again. No rush, no fumbling. I told myself it was another driver doing a walk-around, or someone checking his own rig and using the trailer line as a guide in the dark. I told myself nobody would choose this place for trouble in a downpour. I told myself I was half asleep, and half asleep is when your brain turns normal noises into footsteps. I tried one more excuse, an animal, a deer or a dog nosing around the mud. But the rhythm kept returning, clean and deliberate, like someone practicing a signal. I checked the door lock with 2 fingers and kept my phone dark. Calling the police felt impossible with no clear details, and the idea of speaking out loud felt worse, like it would confirm I was awake and alone. I pulled the curtain back a fraction and kept my face away from the glass. The lot outside was a blur of rain and flickering light, and then I saw a soaked silhouette standing in the downpour, angled toward my window. It was motionless. It did not wave. It did not knock. It looked directly at the place where my head would be, like it already knew. My stomach tightened. The figure drifted out of the street lamp glow and vanished into the dark edge of the trees. But the footsteps stayed. That was when the real pressure started. The person never rushed, never tested the handle, never did anything loud enough to justify a simple response. They just moved the sound around my truck, choosing where it appeared next. Left side, then behind, then along the trailer, then silence. Silence long enough for me to imagine them standing right under my door. Then the tapping again, farther back, as if they wanted me to picture their hand on my trailer skin. I watched the mirrors until my eyes hurt. Rain smeared the glass into useless gray, and the street lamp flicker made shadows jump in and out of existence. Every time I thought I caught movement, it turned into water and reflection. I leaned forward, then back, trying to change the angle, trying to find the one clear line that would prove the lot was empty. I found nothing. That nothing felt like a trap. The reefer unit kept humming behind me, steady and familiar, and I hated it for covering small sounds. I turned my head toward the sleeper behind me, even though I knew it was empty. The curtain between the seat and the bunk looked darker than it should, like it was hiding depth. I listened for anything inside, a breath, a shift of fabric. My mind offered images I did not ask for, a hand on the mattress, a body pressed into the corner. I told myself I would know. Then I remembered how many times I have not noticed my own phone vibrating until I looked at it. The tapping shifted along the trailer, then higher, then lower, as if the person was changing position just to change what I imagined. At one point, the step stopped directly behind the cab, in the narrow gap where I could not see without opening the door. I held my breath and waited for a knock. Instead, fingers touched metal again, softer now, closer to my living space, like they had moved from the trailer to the step, or the frame, or the edge of the cab. I flicked my hazards once, on then off. No reaction. I honked once, sharp. The sound died into the trees. The footsteps did not run. After a pause, the tapping resumed. The exact same rhythm. Tap, tap, pause, tap. Patient, almost bored. Thieves rush, drunks stumble. Normal people knock and speak. This person did none of that. They were not asking. They were reminding me that I was inside, and they could stay outside as long as they wanted. The cab felt smaller with every minute. The rain hammered the roof. The street lamp flickered, dimming and brightening like a dying heartbeat. Each dim beat made the lot feel larger, and each bright beat made it feel too exposed. Then the sound moved closer than the trailer. A dull, soft contact near the cab, like fingers on the step under my door or on the narrow space behind my seat. The footsteps stopped. For a second, there was only rain and the reefer hum. My hand lifted without permission, and I peeled the curtain back a little more, expecting to see the figure somewhere out by the lamp. It was right there, not across the lot, not by the trailer, right at the line of my window, close enough that I did not see it approaching, only the wet outline and the sense of a face at the same height as mine. Most of the body was hidden by the cab angle, as if the person had chosen the one spot my mirrors could not give away. It was motionless. It was looking into the precise crack I had opened, like it had been watching that crack the whole time. No words, no strike, just presence, close enough to turn my truck into a glass box. In that moment, I understood something simple and ugly. My rules reduced risk. They did not remove it. Someone had decided to stand there, and my caution had not mattered. I snapped the curtain shut and lunged for the ignition. The engine caught loud and rough, the cab shuddering as I threw it into gear. The tires slid in mud, then grabbed wet pavement, and I pulled out hard, back toward the highway. My headlights cut through rain and trees, and I forced myself not to look back for long. In the mirror, I saw only the flickering street lamp shrinking behind me. I did not see anyone running. It was like the person never needed to chase. On the highway, the world looked normal again. Lines, signs, distant taillights. That normality felt thin. The tapping rhythm sat in my head under the reefer hum, like my own trailer had learned it. I drove straight to the delivery point and focused on doing everything right, like work could scrub my mind clean. By the time morning thinned the darkness, the yard lights and moving forklifts almost convinced me I was safe again. I parked, got out, and did my usual walk around. Tires, seals, doors, routine, the old comfort. When I reached the front, I saw a wet piece of paper tucked under my windshield wiper. I thought it was a ticket or a note from security. I pulled it free and turned it over. It was a photograph of me inside the cab that night, taken from outside with a flash. The bright burst had caught my face in the dim interior, eyes shut, mouth slightly open, caught mid-sleep behind the glass and curtains. No message, no name, no reason. Just proof that someone had been close enough to take it, close enough to wait for the moment I looked most helpless. I stood there with morning noise all around me and felt the same cold settle in my stomach. The photo did not explain the motive, and that was the point. It left space for fear to keep working. I folded the picture and put it in my pocket because I did not know what else to do. All day, every time metal shifted or a knock echoed through the yard, my shoulders tightened. That night, when I parked somewhere bright and crowded, I still waited before closing the curtains. I listened to the rain on the roof and the steady hum behind me, and I realized the worst part was not the stop itself. The worst part was that the rhythm now lived in my head, and I could not tell where it would show up next. The yard lights were too bright for the hour, cold white lamps that made every puddle look like glass. I signed the paperwork and tried not to stare at the totals. If I stared, I would start doing math, and math always led back to my debt. I had slept maybe 2 hours, the kind of sleep that feels like nothing. Insomnia was not dramatic for me. It was just another part of the job. The company knew I would take the worst routes. I was the guy who said yes when others said no, because the extra pay sounded like oxygen. I did my walk around by habit, checking straps, tapping tires, counting lights. A long load sat under a dark tarp on the trailer, strapped tight and ordinary. Timber, I assumed. I climbed into the cab and felt that small, private relief, the only space that felt like mine. I drove in silence because I hated the radio. Silence kept me steady. The only thing I left on was the CB, turned down low, just in case. By the time I reached the mountain pass, the weather had turned from bad to useless. Fog thickened until my headlights hit it and came back at me, and the road felt like a tunnel. Pine trees stood close on both sides, massive trunks rising into darkness I could not read. The pass narrowed and twisted, and there was no shoulder that felt safe. Pulling over here meant sitting half in the lane, and stopping on a wet incline meant risking a slide I could not correct. I kept moving, slow and careful. In the rearview mirror, the trailer was a shadow behind me. The first time I saw the tarp lift, I told myself it was wind. The straps were tight. I had checked them. Then the CB crackled, and a voice came through, not a call sign, just a thin whisper buried in static. "Your load is too heavy, leave it." I waited for laughter, waited for someone to answer, waited for the message to make sense. Nothing came. Only static, then the whisper again, calm as a thought I did not choose. I adjusted the radio and turned it down, telling myself it was bleed through. A few bends later, I checked the mirror again, and the tarp did not look like wind anymore. It shifted in slow waves, like something large was changing position underneath. The grade steepened, and the truck started to feel wrong. Not just heavy, but held. I pressed the accelerator a little more, then eased off because the road was slick. The engine labored, and the speed still dropped. It felt like the trailer was being pulled backward, gently but constantly. I tried to solve it like a professional. Wet road, brake drag, load settling, a problem I had not noticed yet. I watched the gauges, and everything sat where it should, and that made my stomach tighten. In the mirror, the movement grew deliberate. A slow crawl from one side to the other, a rounded bulge that rose, paused, then sank. The CB whispered again, "Your load is too heavy, leave it." I spoke into the mic, asking if anyone was on the pass. No one answered. I turned the CB off. The cab went quiet for a beat, and then the whisper returned anyway, leaking through the speaker as if the power was still on. I yanked the cord free. For a second, there was only the engine and rain. Then the whisper came again, thinner, like it was coming from inside the dash. "Leave it." The fog pressed close to the windows. The trees flashed past like dark pillars. I could not stop to check the trailer. The road would not allow it. Whatever was back there did not rush me. It moved when it wanted, and it made sure I saw it. The longer it went on, the more it felt like a game where I did not know the rules. Every time I told myself it was just a shifting load, the tarp would move again in a way that looked intentional, like it was answering me. I kept thinking about the money for this run. I pictured the overdue notices on my kitchen table, the tired look on the landlord's face when I asked for more time. I told myself I would not let fear ruin a paycheck. Then the truck slowed another few kilometers an hour, and the thought stopped feeling brave and started feeling stupid. My palms were slick on the wheel. I swallowed and forced my breathing down, slow in, slow out, like I was talking myself through a panic attack without letting my voice escape. The whisper kept returning at odd moments, sometimes stretched out by static, sometimes clean and close. "Your load is too heavy, leave it." It was not ordering me. It was advising me, like it cared about me more than my company did. That made my skin crawl. Small things inside the cab started to feel wrong. A damp smell like cold soil. A slow fogging spot on the passenger side window, as if someone had exhaled near it. The sleeper curtain behind me, barely trembling even though the vents were steady. I told myself it was vibration. I told myself I was tired. The truck crawled higher, and the incline grew steeper, and now the speed dropped so low I could feel it in my teeth. The engine sound dipped, and for a moment it felt like the cab leaned backward, like the trailer had decided it would not be pulled any farther. I reached down toward the emergency trailer release controls, the ones I had only used in training. My fingers shook. I glanced at the passenger seat and saw mud on the floor mat, a wet smear near the edge. On the lower lip of the glove compartment, there was a single wet print, fingers pressed there for balance. The fog outside was thick, but this was inside. I kept my eyes forward. I did not turn around to check the sleeper. In the mirror, the tarp bulged once, as if it reacted to my hand. The whisper came again, not from the CB now, but close to my left ear, mixed with static that did not belong in open air. "Your load is too heavy. Leave it." I pulled the emergency release. The connection broke with a hard snap, and the feeling of being dragged backwards stopped instantly, like a hand let go. The truck lurched forward, suddenly light. I looked back just long enough to see the trailer settle in the lane behind me, a dark shape swallowed by fog, the tarp still moving in slow, patient waves. Then I drove. I drove down the pass, careful and desperate, not fast enough to lose control, not slow enough to give it time. When the sky began to pale, dawn did not feel like safety. It made everything look ordinary, and ordinary made me feel unreal. I pulled into a safe area, and sat with my hands on the wheel until my phone found one weak bar. I called dispatch and gave them the location, trying to sound like a driver reporting a mechanical emergency. I said the trailer was too heavy. I said the road was unsafe. I said I detached to avoid an accident. Dispatch was quiet, then asked what trailer number I had. I told them. Another pause. Then the dispatcher said my name carefully and told me I had not picked up any cargo that night. I was sent to bring the truck back empty. No load was assigned to me, no tarp, no timber, no paperwork on file. He asked if I was feeling okay. My hand still remembered the pull of the incline. My eyes still remembered the tarp rising like a slow breath in the mirror. I drove back to the yard in daylight and looked for proof, a missing record, a camera angle, anything. The logs did not match my memory. I asked them to check the gate camera, to check the yard logs again, to check my GPS. A supervisor humored me and pulled up the route, then shrugged like it proved nothing except that I drove where I said I drove. They sent a pickup to the pass after sunrise. It came back with an empty report. No trailer, no tarp, no blocked lane, just wet pavement and fog lifting off the pines. A day later, I drove up there myself in daylight, and the road looked clean, like my whole night had been erased. The checkout notes showed an empty return. I stopped telling the story after that. I kept working because debt does not care about fear. But the past changed me. I check the rearview mirror, even when I am driving with no trailer. I keep the cab too clean, wiping at nothing, watching the passenger side glass for the smallest fogging spot. I do not use the CB anymore, but sometimes, in the dead center of silence, I still hear that thin static whisper like a thought pushed into my skull. Your load is too heavy. Leave it. And what eats at me is not the idea that something moved under the tarp. It is the idea that it knew exactly when I was too tired to fight. The first thing I did was the checklist. Hazmat runs were never casual, not even on a quiet night. I checked seals, placards, weight, paperwork. When everything matched, my chest loosened a little. Routine was how I stayed calm. I was young, but I trusted procedures more than mood. The highway ahead was the boring kind of empty. Flat desert, no curves, no towns, no real exits. Just lane lines sliding under my headlights in a steady rhythm. I liked that. With fewer variables, the truck became a simple system I could read. I kept the cab quiet. No music, no talk. Sound distracted me, and distraction caused mistakes. The CB stayed on low, only for warnings. I was tired in a controlled way, dry eyes, sharp thoughts, hands that felt steady until I looked at them. I had been taking too many shifts, trying to get ahead of bills that never stopped. A hazmat load paid better, but it also meant my smallest error could be final. So I drove like a machine, careful and consistent. A reflective sign flashed by on the right. Mile 44. I noted it without thinking. Mile markers were proof that time moved forward, even when the scenery did not. About half an hour later, the same reflective sign appeared again. Mile 44. My mind stalled on it, like a gear that refused to catch. I had not turned. I had not exited. I had been driving straight. For a moment, I wondered if I had misread it the first time, the way tired eyes can turn one number into another without you noticing. I told myself the sign might be playing tricks too, a desert mirage of reflective paint, the kind that looks solid until you get close and realize your brain filled in the rest. Annoyance came first. Annoyance was easier than fear. I checked the clock, my speed, The trip meter. The numbers said I had traveled. The road said I had not. I told myself the sign was wrong, a replacement put in the wrong spot. It happened. Humans made mistakes. I slowed a little and searched for an explanation. Cones, a work truck, a detour. There was nothing. The desert beyond the shoulder was a black plain. The horizon was the same line. I considered pulling over, but stopping with hazmat felt like inviting trouble. I kept going, expecting mile 45 to appear and end the thought. The next sign was mile 44. Something shifted inside me, not panic yet, but the feeling that my logic had lost its grip. I reset the trip meter again. I watched miles climb. The lane lines flowed. The world stayed identical, like a looped video. I checked GPS. The screen flickered, showed a straight route with no map around it, then went blank. My phone had no signal. I tried to treat it like a mechanical issue. Restart, wait, confirm. Nothing changed. Outside the windshield, the highway was still a ruler line into darkness. I started testing reality in small, controlled ways. I changed speed, then held it steady. I drifted within the lane and corrected, watching the steering response. I blinked hard, rubbed my eyes, drank water, and focused on the taste. Inside the cab, everything behaved. Engine normal, gauges normal, vents normal. Outside, the road never evolved. The silence stopped feeling neutral. It felt like attention, like the desert was listening for me to admit I was lost. That was the worst part. If I could find one clear fault, one simple cause, I could fix it. Instead, I had a straight line and a repeated number, and my own mind turning into a crowded room. I turned up the CB and pressed the mic. I spoke in my normal professional tone. Any drivers out here, anyone near mile 44, I need a radio check. I released the button and listened. Static came back, then a voice cut through it fast and strained. The voice was mine. Not similar, mine exactly. Same breath, same cadence, same slight edge I heard when I was stressed. It was not answering my question. It was describing something. Do not brake. Do not touch the brakes. You are going to want to brake, but you cannot. You will see it ahead. You will think you have time. You do not. My skin tightened. I pressed the mic again. Who is this? I released it. The voice continued like it had not heard me. In 10 seconds, you will feel the road shimmer. In 9, in 8, you will think it is heat, but it is smoke. In 7, in 6, your dash will flicker once. In 5, in 4, you will lean forward. In 3, in 2, you will see the wreck and you will brake. If you brake, you will roll. I tried to interrupt again, louder, like authority could change physics. Stop talking, this is my channel. I released the mic. The voice kept going, calm and terrified at the same time. Your trailer will swing, the weight will shift, the straps will snap like whips. You will feel the cab lift. You will hear glass. You will smell fuel and hot metal. You will not have time to think. I stared into the road until my eyes hurt. A faint haze hovered over the asphalt ahead, thin and pale, wrong for the desert night. I had been about to dismiss it as dust. Hearing it predicted made it heavy. My stomach tightened the way it tightened before a real failure, the moment when a small noise becomes a large problem. I tried to shut the radio down. I lowered the volume. The voice softened, but did not stop. I turned it off. The speaker went quiet for a beat, then the same voice returned anyway, as if distance no longer mattered. You will try to slow down carefully. You cannot. You will panic. You will break. That is the mistake. My heart hammered, but my face stayed still. Fear was useful only when it became procedure. I repeated that in my head. I checked gauges again, as if numbers could protect me. Everything was steady. The steadiness felt staged. I pressed the mic again, quieter. If you are me, then tell me what to do. I released it. Hold the wheel. Keep it straight. Do not break. If you try to avoid it, you will tip. You have one option, and you will hate it. The haze thickened into a dirty fog that swallowed the far end of my beams. My hands trembled once, then locked. The urge to brake rose like a reflex, the old safe rule of driving. I could feel my foot hover, ready to do what it had done 1,000 times. My logic tried to argue that braking was control. The voice answered the argument before I finished it. It is there. You see it now. You are going to brake. Do not. Do not. Orange light flared in the fog. Shapes formed, twisted metal, black smoke, a hard angle across the lane. Then it snapped close, too close. An overturned truck, burning, my truck, same hazard placards, same reflective tape. The wreck lay across the highway like a wall. My foot lifted, ready to slam the brake. Every cell in my body screamed for it. The voice on the CB turned frantic, describing impact, describing the roll, describing my body inside a cab that was no longer upright. I made one clean decision. I gripped the wheel and floored the gas. The engine roared. The truck surged forward. I stared into the burning shape until the last moment. Then I closed my eyes. I expected the crash. Instead, I felt a brief wash of heat, like passing an open furnace, and a sharp smoke smell. Then it vanished. No impact, no jolt, only tires on asphalt, steady and alive. I opened my eyes. The darkness was thinning, the horizon a pale line. The fog was gone. The road ahead was empty. The CB was silent, no static, no voice, no echo of me. A sign slid past on the right, mile 45. Relief hit late, like my body needed proof. I eased off the gas, careful not to stomp the brakes. The truck stayed stable. The load stayed stable. The world behaved again. When the shoulder widened, I pulled over and stepped out. Cool air, dry, normal. I looked back down the straight highway. No wreck, no smoke, no marks. Just empty road fading into sunrise. I tried to build an explanation that fit my rules. Microsleep, stress, a prank, a malfunction, but one detail refused to cooperate. That voice had been me, perfectly me, describing my death second by second like memory. I drove on under the rising sun, and the desert looked honest again. I did not. Since that night, I read every mile marker twice. I hesitate before I press the CB mic, every time. If I hear static, my shoulders tighten before my mind can explain why. And when the road is perfectly straight and the cab is perfectly quiet, I wonder if I escaped because I solved the loop, or because it decided to let me go this time. I have driven car haulers for a long time, long enough that the job can feel like a loop. Same straps, same checklists, same dark roads. That night was supposed to be simple. I had 6 brand new cars on my 2-story trailer. I was running a canyon highway that cuts through empty land for hours. No towns, no streetlights, no cell service. Just my headlights, the rock walls on one side, and the drop into black on the other. I am not the kind of guy who looks for signs. I do not believe in ghosts, and I do not tell myself stories to make a night shift exciting. I keep a podcast playing to stay awake, low enough that I can still hear the engine. I checked my mirrors in my usual rhythm and kept my hands steady, thinking about the delivery lot at sunrise. I was tired in a normal way, the kind of tired that makes you blink a little longer than you should. Then you sit up and promise yourself you will stay sharp. I checked my mirrors again, left, right, then the long look down the trailer. That was when I saw the light. The very last car on the bottom deck had its headlights on, bright beams aimed straight into the road behind me. For a few seconds, I just watched it, waiting for my brain to correct itself. Nothing changed. The lights stayed on. My first thought was an electrical short. New cars are full of smart systems now, automatic lights, sensors, things that wake up when they feel motion. I told myself it was a battery issue or some stray signal through the harness. I felt annoyed, like the manufacturer had found a new way to make my night harder. I kept driving. Stopping out there is never a good plan. There are stretches where there is barely any shoulder, and the canyon feels like it was built to hide things. I watched the mirror and waited for the headlights to cut out. After a few miles, they did. I breathed out, and the podcast voice started to sound normal again. Then the next car forward turned its headlights on. The timing was too clean. Not a blink, not a random flash. It was on, steady, like someone had decided it should be on. My stomach tightened, but I stayed logical. Maybe the first car had sent a fault through the line. I said it out loud, just to hear my own voice. A few miles later, those headlights shut off, and the next car forward lit up. Then the next. The light was moving up my trailer, step by step, quiet and patient. I turned the podcast down, then off, because suddenly I needed the cab to be silent. The silence did not help. It made every small sound sharper, the engine hum, the tires, the faint rattle of chains. It also made my thoughts louder. I started checking the mirrors too often, not in my normal rhythm anymore. I would look forward, then snap my eyes to the mirror, then forward again, as if I could catch the exact moment the lights jumped. My neck began to ache from the constant movement. Each time the headlights advanced, my pulse answered it, like my body was learning the pattern before my mind could deny it. I grabbed the CB mic and called out, even though I knew nobody was out there. All I got was static. It was the flat kind of static that sounds like distance itself. I tried again anyway, changing channels, tapping the mic, listening for even one crack of another voice. Nothing. The canyon kept my headlights and swallowed everything else. The road felt narrower the longer I went. Rock on one side, emptiness on the other, and darkness ahead that never got brighter. There were no other vehicles, no lights in the distance, no sign that the world still had people in it. The more I looked in the mirror, the more the trailer began to feel like 6 sealed rooms I was dragging through the dark. When the lights reached the cars on the top deck, the fear changed shape. It stopped being about wiring and started being about space. Those cars were supposed to arrive untouched, perfect, clean, safe. The idea that anything could be inside one of them made my skin feel tight. My mirror checks turned into a compulsion I could not stop. I would stare too long, then jerk my eyes forward and correct the wheel, angry at myself for risking the one thing keeping me alive. I tried to build new explanations, and they fell apart as fast as I made them. Someone following me with a remote device, but there were no headlights behind the rig. A factory test mode. But why would it move one car at a time, always forward, always closer to my cab? Every time I accepted one excuse, the lights advanced again and took it away. By the time the pattern reached the front, my hands were sweating on the wheel. I felt trapped by the simplest truth of my job. I could not stop to check, because checking would mean climbing back there alone with my back to the canyon. I could not call for help. The CB gave me nothing but static, and my phone was useless. The only thing I could do was keep moving and hope that movement mattered. Then the top car, right behind the cabin, turned its headlights on. The light came through my rear window and hit the back of my head and shoulders. I looked in the mirror and saw a dark silhouette in the driver's seat of that brand new car. It was not moving. It was just sitting there, facing forward, like a person on a normal drive. My body reacted before my mind did. I locked my doors hard, like I could seal myself twice. My foot hit the gas and the engine rose, louder than it had been all night. I only knew that stopping out here would be a fatal mistake. Morning came the slow way it always does, a thin gray line that makes you realize you survived another night. I drove straight into the delivery lot without stopping anywhere. The lot looked normal. Fences, parked cars, a sleepy worker with a clipboard. I climbed up to inspect the load, forcing my hands to stay steady. The top car behind my cabin was locked from the inside. The windows were fogged from the inside, like someone had been breathing in there for hours. On the steering wheel, there were muddy handprints, clear enough to see finger shapes. No mud anywhere else. No footprints on the trailer, just hands, as if someone had held on all night. I got the door open after too many shaking tries, and the fog rolled out in a damp breath. The seat was empty. There was nobody hiding. There was no obvious sign of a stowaway. The air inside smelled used, not dirty, just warm and human. People asked what was wrong. I tried to explain without sounding crazy. Someone suggested condensation, as if that could explain the headlights walking up the trailer. I called the police anyway. They looked around, asked routine questions, and found nothing that fit. No forced entry, no theft, no broken straps. They told me to get some rest. I still drive, I have to, but the job changed in a way I cannot explain. I cannot listen to podcasts the same way anymore. When voices fill the cab, a part of me wonders what I might miss behind me. When the cab is quiet, a part of me waits for a clean white flare in the mirror. Some nights I check my mirrors and feel relief when there is nothing. Other nights the relief feels wrong because it makes me think of the only thing worse than seeing someone behind you, not seeing them at all.